welcome back. Mrs. Saunders here with another lesson in geometry. Today we're talking about angle measure. We're going to start with learning more vocabulary about angles. Then we're going to learn how to measure angles, and then we're going to do some algebra stuff. So let's go ahead and start with some vocabulary. Now remember from previous lessons, the reason we learn vocabulary is so when I say something, you know exactly what I mean. So here's an occasion where that didn't work. It says, the translation says, please keep chair on position and keep table cleaned after dying. Thanks for your cooperation. So I think it meant, please keep chair in position and keep the table cleaned after dining. Thank you for your cooperation. Okay. Anyway, so let's go to geometry now. So the vocabulary of geometry. First up today is array. Array is a part of a line. It has one endpoint and then it just goes off into infinity. So here's array. It has this endpoint or starting point, M, and then off it goes to infinity and beyond. That's array. Now let's put some other points on this ray. We'll put P, we'll put O, because if we want to name the ray, what's important is that if we're going to name the ray, we always have to start with the starting point of the ray, okay? So we could call this MP, or we could call it MO. We can use either O or P, but we always have to start at the beginning. So could we call it OP? Well, we can't start with O because that's smack in the middle. So that doesn't work. We can't call that one OP. An angle is formed by two non-collinear rays. And do you remember we learned that term non-collinear in a previous lesson? It just means not on the same line. So here we have two non-collinear rays, and you'll see that between them is an angle. And the rays then become what we call the sides. And the point that they share, that's called the vertex. And when we name an angle, what's really important is that the vertex is in the middle of all the letters, because the vertex, well, it's in the middle of the angle. So we could call this angle YXZ, or we could call it ZXY. What's important again is that the vertex is in the middle. Okay? So let's do some practice. What is the vertex for angle 1? Here's angle 1. So we've got two rays coming together. What point do those two rays share? They share point W. What are the sides for angle 5? There's angle 5 up here. And the sides are two non-collinear rays, TS and TW. See, the starting point for both of those rays is T, so we have to have T first on each of those names. What is another name for angle 3? Well, T is the vertex, so that's going to be in the middle of the name. We could say WTV or VTW. Either way is fine. A little bit more vocabulary. This is considered the interior of the angle, and the rest is considered the exterior. So here's an angle, and if we want to measure it, we need a protractor. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to find the vertex of the angle, and we're going to put the vertex right with this line in the middle of the protractor. And then the bottom here just lines up with this bottom that hits the 0. So we're starting at point 0, and then we're just going to read up. And it ends at 40. Okay, so this angle YXZ is 40 degrees. Let's try another one. Here's our protractor. Again, see we have the vertex lined up right in the middle, and we go and start at 0, and then oh my, this one we're going up, over, keep going, and we land at 120. All right, so this is 120 degrees, measure of DOG, dog. Measure of that angle is 120. Now what happens if the angle opens up the other way? See, if we put the protractor on it, this 0 point over here, there's no angle there. So that's not going to work. But we start in the middle just like we did before, but this time we're going to start reading from over here. See, here's our 0 mark, okay? And then we can go up and we're going to look at the top numbers and we're going to go this way, way over here. The measure of angle CAT or CAT is 130 degrees. Okay, now the measure of angle CAL. What's the measure of angle CAL? Here's our protractor. It's opening up starting this way. Okay, so we're going to go read. And we've got a 90-degree angle. Now, a 90-degree angle is also what we call a right angle. And since we're talking about right angles, let's talk about angle classifications. There's 3 different types of angles. One, we just saw, is an angle that measures 90 degrees. Okay, so that's a right angle. Now, if you squeeze it, make it smaller, any angle that's less than 90 degrees, we call an acute angle. If it's bigger than 90 degrees, we have an obtuse angle. A little bit of review before we move on to the next vocabulary. This was from before. We learned about congruent segments, and congruent segments have the same measure. Remember, we mark those segments to tell the reader that they're congruent with those two little lines. So we can do the same thing with angles. Okay, so angles that have the same measure are also congruent. So if we want y to be congruent to O, okay, we can mark those, not with lines this time, but with these little arcs. That's how we measure or we mark those congruent angles. Now let's take this angle and let's cut it in half. When we cut it in half, we've created an angle bisector, because a bisector, by definition, splits something into equal halves. So in this case, our angle bisector is a ray that divides the angle into 2 congruent angles. So let's put that into practice. You're going to love this. If FH bisects IFG and angle IFG is 3x plus 9 and angle IFG is 7x minus 5, then find the measure of IFG. You're like, seriously, what? Okay, what do you do when there's all that stuff up there? You draw a picture. Draw a picture, draw a picture, draw a picture. Your brain needs a place to organize the information. All right, so let's do that. So it says FH bisects IFG. So first of all, we need that angle, IFG. Now we know that FH bisects it. Okay, so we'll right in the middle of the angle is the angle bisector. We know that here, IFG is 3x plus 9, so let's just label that. And then it says that IFG is 7x minus 5. Well, IFG, that's the whole thing. IFG is the whole thing. So that whole angle is 7x minus 5. So just table that for a second, putting that in the back of your mind. And let's see what we know with this information. Now, FH is the angle bisector. It cuts it right in half. So if this guy is 3x plus 9, what's this guy? Also 3x plus 9. They're the same measure. So if we add them together, we get the big angle, IFG. Remember what they said, IFG is 7x minus 5. And now it's just algebra. We can combine like terms, so 3x plus 3x, that's 6x. 9 and 9 is 18. And that still equals 7x minus 5. Subtract 6x from both sides, you get 18 equals x minus 5. Add 5 to both sides, we get x equals 23. They didn't want x. They wanted the measure of IFG. They wanted the measure of that big angle. Well, we know that it's 7x minus 5, so we'll just take x and plug it in. 7 times 23 minus 5, 156 degrees. So there we go, angle measure. Thanks for being here.